offense, they need Henry Ruggs to live up to his draft status.
Yeah,
I mean, last year amongst first-round wide receivers, his production was sorely lacking. Ruggs only caught a pass on 8% of his routes, which almost all receivers with at least 300 targets, that ranks 4th worst in the entire NFL. Now, then the question is, okay,
man, like I have a tremendous amount of respect for Derek Carr and Waller and what they are from an offensive standpoint. One, you gave away an entirety of your offensive line, who ranked very highly in this league. But more importantly, let me get to the actual point. And Mina's gonna love this, and Dan is gonna love this. I gotta give my man.
3rd and 10. Here comes Jared Allen, and he's out of bounds. Poor guy, I don't even know if he realized it. And that's a safety.
Well, so much for me calling him savvy, because he
say we just couldn't finish, which is Mike Mayock's word. That implies that you believe that you're close. If you believe that you were close, why did you dismantle the best part of your football team, which was what your offensive line was? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Dan, yes.
You dismantled your offensive line. And
by the end of this year, we're going to have the clarity in that they're either a team in transition or they're a directionless franchise. Because if they play the season out the way that we expect them to, and they don't make any changes, then what are you doing? Right now, you're a directionless franchise. If the season plays out the way that we think that it will, and they do make changes, now you're a team in transition. The question is, what are the odds that they outperform expectations? But I personally would put this team comfortably last in this division.
Yes, Dan, yes. All right, welcome Raider Nation to my Just My Opinion YouTube channel. Where do you start after that? We got to start on a real downer for Raider Nation, right? I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing all this crap on the national media. And my YouTube channel is not going to be about bashing the national media, but I do want to get this out of the way so at the end of the year, if things don't pan out the way I think they will, I think we're going to have a really good year. I want to bring this back up at the end of the year and see, let's call these people out when they all start turning tail and we see the yellow spots on their back. I don't even know where to start. Let's start with Mia Kimes. Now, she's a really good investigative journalist. She's a senior writer at ESPN. But what she isn't good at is being an NFL analyst. Her, Colin Cowherd, and let's throw Mike Lombardi in there, and these podcast draft dudes. I call them sheep. And the reason I call them sheep is because the narrative that they all keep bringing up is what PFF brought up. So that just tells me that they do very little of their own original work, that they just go, whatever PFF says, like a snowball rolling downhill, they all agree with it. And that's just frustrating to me, because I guess I'm a little bit of a podcast junkie and a YouTube, when it comes to the Raiders. Any information I can gather, because obviously I'm not on the field, so I can only get the things that I know in the over 40 years of watching the NFL and watching the Raiders, just experience, is the things that I see. And just my opinion. And in my opinion this is just a bunch of garbage that these people keep coming up with. And Dan Orlowski, and Mia Kimes, who are these people to judge Gruden or the Raiders? I mean, how are they qualified? In the old days, the NFL shows, they weren't kind of this passive aggressive way of just downgrading. I've heard several people say that Gruden should be fired, or that the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL, worst franchise in the NFL. And it's just all a false narrative that's put out there. So I just wanted to address that before I get this going. This YouTube channel really is going to be about today. Are we the worst team in the AFC West? The draft dudes say we are. Colin Cowherd says we are. Mike Lombardi says we are. Let's go over Mike Lombardi real quick. What did Gruden do to that poor guy? Because if Gruden came back to coaching, what would Mike Lombardi do? Every other show you hear him on is him bashing Gruden. Wow. Mike Lombardi should be thanking John Gruden, because the only reason anybody interviews the guy anymore is to ask questions about him. And Gruden must have must have really done something bad to Lombardi, because this guy is like waiting in the bushes to say something. Like, remember the little kid throw a rock and then run from you? That's what Lombardi is. Lombardi should just stick to doing The Sopranos and the Godfather, because that's what he's good at. Yeah, he wrote a book, so hey, people will say, hey, Charles, he wrote a book about the NFL. Well, anybody who spent a few years with Al Davis and a few years with Bill Belichick could write a book about the NFL. And you wouldn't even have to know nothing about it. It would probably be a bestseller. But you know what? I don't remember Belichick, after he won a few of them Super Bowls when Lombardi was there, ever saying thanks to Mike Lombardi is the reason we got here. So I'll leave that where it is. He'll show up on Pat McAfee's show or something, just downgrading Gruden. But, I mean, Gruden's been successful. If you want to say, oh, his winning record ain't good, he took over the Raiders back in the 90s when they were a bad franchise, rebuilt them, turned them into a powerhouse. They were winning the AFC West, and they went to the Super Bowl with a team that he built. And then he goes to what we keep calling Tony Dungy's team, who could not win the Super Bowl. He wins it, and then they disperse. Most of them guys go for bigger contracts. Gruden had lost 2 first-round picks with Tampa Bay because they gave that to Al Davis. So he was trying to rebuild a team, and he went 8-8, and they fired him. They really should have never fired him. They should have gave Gruden a chance to rebuild a team. But a lot of people in Tampa didn't like him because the team broke up, and they were all in love with Dungy and that defensive team that Dungy had built. They understood. On the other side, Raider players and fans loved him. And Mike Lombardi will tell you, everybody hates working with Gruden. Says he'd better have his teeth pulled. So, you know what? Please, Lombardi, just shut the hell up. Find something else to talk about. Stop, like, using Gruden for you to get interviews on the NFL networks and everywhere you go to talk about. The only thing you ever talk about is Gruden. But anyway, enough of that. And Mia Kimes. I mean, if you're going to say something, if you're gonna address Henry Ruggs, you have to say he had COVID, he was out 2 games. In general, he had a pretty good season. I hear PFF compare the Raiders, Ruggs to Judy, and say that they should have picked Jerry Jeudy. I don't think Judy's even. I think they're equals. Maybe Ruggs got more speed. And then the PFF's going to tell you, well, the stats. Look at the stats. What was it? Jerry Jeudy had 52 catches. Ruggs had 26. We didn't need Ruggs to catch 26 passes, and he was hurt 3 games. Jerry Jeudy scored 3 touchdowns. Ruggs scored 2. One of them won a game for us. How many games did Jeudy win for the Broncos? It's just garbage that they put out there. And I just want to call these people out. At the end of the year, like I said, I'm going to bring this back, take a look at it. Dan Orlovsky, this guy is responsible for the dumbest play ever in NFL. And he's judging the Raiders and Gruden? Just shut the hell up. I hate that I'm even addressing this. And the fact that I love listening to podcasts, and I used to listen to the draft dudes, and the other day I'm done listening to that crap, because if you're going to, hey draft dudes, if you're going to talk about the Raiders, you've got to be a little more realistic, and you've got to be a little more in depth. You said they didn't do anything in the offseason to help this team. Ngakwe's nothing. McCoy's nothing. Hayward's nothing. Really? They drafted a really good safety, the best safety probably in the NFL draft, in some people's opinion, in my opinion, and other people's. But they drafted Leatherwood. Well, we should have drafted Darrisaw or the guy that the Bears just drafted, because neither one of them are going to play this year. The guys that they said for us to draft aren't going to play this year. Woo! Another genius by them. These know-it-alls. You know, I like PFF. I like a lot of what they do. But their stats. And just like looking at Judy's stats compared to Ruggs, they don't win games for you. Stats don't win games. You know? You could have 2 yards rushing and win the game 10-0. It just I don't know how we got to where we're at. After, you know, back in the old days when I used to watch the NFL, you didn't have all these people come up and make their own little business, throwing some stats out there, and that's the end all, a be all, and that's what we all act like now. And that's why it bugs me that Mia Kimes, excuse me, gets such a big deal about this girl. Like, I think, and it's not because I don't like women doing the NFL. I don't mind at all. I think Joy Taylor, I think Kay Adams are both really good, but they have their own opinion. You don't hear them mimicking PFF. You actually hear them having an original thought. Unlike the NFL Live on ESPN has became like almost like a Jerry Springer show. They just, whatever they say, if it's Brady and Rodgers, they can tell you everything about it. That's about the only thing they really know about it. Everything else is hearsay, or it's just their opinion. But I know, Raider Nation, you've got to be as tired of I am of hearing this, to the point where I just got to quit watching it. It's like Hondo Carpenter says for Raiders Radio, don't give them clickbait. So I'm done with a lot of these podcasts, and I'm done watching this crap because it's garbage. If you're going to tell, like they said, the defense hasn't improved for the Raiders at all. I guarantee you this defense has really improved. The defensive line is a lot better. I'll get into that in a minute about the COVID year, but how it affected the Raiders. But many of them have said, and Colin Cowherd said, they're going to finish last in the AFC West. I love this. That's awesome. That is awesome. And so did Lombardi. So did these draft dudes, who I call them draft duds now. And I heard him say, well, Raider fans probably hate us. Raider fans don't hate you. They probably just don't really care. Your opinion's kind of crap, and it's dumb. And if you're going to put dumb narratives out there, nobody's going to really care what you say. But anyway, I see where they picked us to come last, the Raiders, to come last in the NFL, or in the AFC West. It kind of blows my mind. See, we did beat the Chiefs, almost swept the Chiefs, beat the Saints, beat the Browns. Well, did the Broncos? I'm sorry, what playoff team did they beat? The Chargers? And if any Charger fan or anybody tells me, oh, the Chargers beat the Chiefs the last game of the year, really? Without Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, and half the defense? All right. The Chargers picked to come second in this division. This is a joke. This is a joke. My opinion, the Chargers may have 6 wins this year. Maybe 7. They really only had 6 last year if you take the Chiefs taking the starters out last game of the season. Because the Broncos and Chargers can't beat the Chiefs. They're not even close to beating the Chiefs. But the Raiders did beat the Chiefs. And ESPN, Mike Lombardi, PFF, they don't ever mention that. They just mention how bad Leatherwood is of a pick. Monson said the other day that Leatherwood had the worst preseason game. Let's check the facts on that. I mean, when you want to say stuff like this, it's just garbage. And really, it's making me really doubt, your opinion. It makes you look dumb. But I guess Monson, he's one of them who can't stand the Raiders. And I think as a professional, whenever you're doing these shows, you should at least, you can't let your anger, or just because you don't like Gruden, or just because you don't like the Raiders, you still have to give a truthful analysis of each team. And I'm going to try to do that. I'm a Raiders homer. I ain't going to lie to you. But I'm going to try going over the AFC West today to be original and give it, what I really think and what facts and fiction are out there. I'm going to start with the Chargers. And this Justin Herbert phenom, he's going to be a good quarterback. I believe that. The guy can make a lot of great throws. But if you think that COVID did not help this kid, then you're not paying attention. So, the NFL last year broke a record in the first 7 or 8 weeks for the most points scored. They even NFL networks and many people said that they weren't calling holding calls at the first of the year. Now, if you played football and paid attention to football, the hardest thing to prepare for from week to week is a defense. A defense has to prepare for an offense, and they need to practice. First 7 or 8 weeks, COVID was a mess. Everything was done on Zoom. Defenses couldn't practice. No fans in the stands. If you do not think this helped Justin Herbert, you're not paying attention. So when this guy comes out and he doesn't have the same kind of year, and he's not going to have the same kind of year, in my opinion, as he did last year, did all these people just sleep on it? Not one person stood up and said, well, I think Justin Herbert might be good, and this is what should have been said. He'll probably have a good year, but I don't think it's going to be as good as last year. Well, you haven't heard anybody say that. He's automatically penciled in for the second in the AFC West by a lot of these so-called professional analysts. It's a joke. The Raiders are a much better team than the Chargers. But they got Derwin James, who's played 5 games in 2 years. I don't remember him affecting the Raiders at all. I don't remember a Bosa affecting the Raiders at all. I don't know. I'd take Crosby, Ngakwe over their pass rushers, and I'd definitely take our new defensive line. If you don't think this defensive line is improved, go look it up. Go look at these players. If McCoy comes back a half the player he was, this defensive line just got like what I call house money, which is Solomon. Thomas is also house money. And the reason I call him house money, we got him at a cheap price, a guy who was a number 3 pick overall, great against the run, and occasionally gets some pressure on the quarterback. It's a great pickup. There's nothing to lose there. McCoy is house money. We got the guy cheap. If he comes back, like I said, half the player he was, this defensive line is not only improved, it might be one of the better ones in the NFL. It's going to be better than the Chargers. And just a little nugget for you. Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator who got to see every tick and mistake that Justin Herbert made last year. Do you think that helps the Raiders a little? We got one of their better defensive backs. Hayward is one of their better defensive backs. Almost all defenses had a down year, if you want to say he had a down year. But a lot of that was the COVID. A lot of that was the practicing. But there's nowhere on this team, if you want to say that Herbert is more talented than Carr, you got to see more of a quantity. This is just the people's opinions and what they think is going to happen this year. What I think is going to happen this year, he's going to hit some struggles. He's going to run into some problems he didn't run into last year because people can prepare for him. If you want to see a team that prepared for Justin Herbert, go back and look at the New England Patriot game. The New England Patriots last year, how good they were. Woo, they were good. They beat the Chargers 45-0. That's what happens for Justin Herbert when you have time to prepare. And I'm not sitting here bashing the guy. He may turn out to be, right now this guy is not better than Derek Carr. When you drop back and you're passing double the amount of Carr, then you're probably going to have more yards. He's a good quarterback. He may turn out to be one of the better ones in the NFL. But I got to see it with fans and times for defenses to prepare. This Charger team is not more talented than this Raider team. This Raider team is young. The question comes up, well, they always collapse at the end of the year. Well, that's depth. That's because we have not had a lot of depth on this team. It's because Gruden decided to rebuild this team for longevity. Most coaches can't do that. The NFL is not set up for that. Most coaches try to get to the playoffs their first year, usually causing them to get fired because they sign any free agent. Every rookie's got to play immediately. The rookies have to turn out. Gruden doesn't have that problem. Therefore, he can take the chances to make this team better through longevity. You know, they say that we're not a young and up-and-coming team. We're one of the younger teams in the NFL. We're also one of the faster teams on defense. Tanner Muse, if he turns out to be a decent linebacker, the guy can fly. Corey Littleton can fly. Diablo can fly. Gillespie can fly. Nate Hobbs, they're all speedsters. And they can tackle. If these guys can play in the NFL, we're going to have one of the fastest teams in the NFL, and that's built to stop the Chiefs. The first-round draft picks, I mean, it's just brutal the way that they beat on the Raiders for their first-round draft picks. And it's timing. It's all it is. If the Raiders would have had 3 number 1 picks this year, whoa, this would have been a heck of a draft for them. The year that they had it, there wasn't no just end-all, be-all star where they were at. If you want to compare Farrell to Josh Allen and Burns, I'll still take Farrell. Farrell is really good against the run. Farrell did okay for his rookie year, but rookies do not play great in the NFL their first year. The second year, the COVID hit, and it just set the Raiders back. If you were an experienced team going into COVID, it benefited you more. Chiefs, Tampa Bay, the Bills had an experienced quarterback. The Titans, these are the teams, the Saints, all these teams benefited from COVID because they were all older, veteran teams. The Raiders were not going to benefit from it as much because they were young. And as the season went on, the backups, we weren't good enough. We did all we could do. If you think Gruden didn't do a heck of a coaching job, he did. Yeah, did he make mistakes? Yes, he did. Did Andy Reid make mistakes? Yes, he did. Belichick make mistakes? Yes. Even the Tampa Bay coach, I didn't even think of his name. They all make mistakes. It's just who has the players to cover them up. Gruden's a really good coach. He's one of the better ones in the NFL. And just for giggles here, we'll say Andy Reid's got 1 Super Bowl win. Gruden's got 1. Andy Reid has had plenty of chances to have more. A lot more chances than Gruden has. So if you really want to talk on somebody that's failed, Reid couldn't beat the Patriots at home. Then he wins against the 49ers at a Super Bowl. He was down almost the entire Super Bowl. Should have lost if Jimmy G could have made a play. And if 3rd and 13, Tyreek Hill standing there by himself with Sherman supposedly supposed to be on him. Thank God we didn't sign Sherman. I know Raider fans, a lot of you all like to hear the big names, but Sherman would not have helped this team at all. So anyway, they should have lost the 49ers Super Bowl, and the Chiefs won. I'm not bashing them. They're a good team. They got the best quarterback in the NFL. But then they can't. Then they go to Tampa. They played Tampa in Tampa and lose that Super Bowl. They've had 3 years in a row. If they were that great, shouldn't they have won them Super Bowls? If Belichick had that team, would he have won that Super Bowl? If Belichick had Mahomes, if you flip the script, when the Chiefs lost to New England that year, if Belichick flipped the script and he had Mahomes and the Chiefs, would they have 3 Super Bowls right now? I don't know. I think so. So Andy Reid being the end-all, be-all, in my mind, he's not. He's a great coach. I'm not knocking him. But he's had his chances to win Super Bowls. Gruden's chances are coming up here. You can mark my word on that. So, anybody that thinks the Chargers are more talented than the Raiders, if it's all around Justin Herbert, okay. Other than that, Murray played okay as a linebacker, but he wasn't sacking the quarterback or he wasn't making behind the line of scrimmage tackles all the time. Half his tackles were downfield. I mean, he can tackle. He's got some speed. So, what if Tanner Moose turns out to be as good as Murray and we got him in the 3rd round? We don't know. Tanner Muse had a foot injury, so we didn't see him. What we see in preseason, what we're seeing in practice, he looks pretty darn good. So, if you want to say the Chargers are more talented than the Raiders, you can buy that sub sandwich. I think it's BS. I think the tail at the end of the year we'll see 6 wins maybe at the Chargers. The Raiders should have swept them. Let's not forget, if Gruden runs the ball twice in the first Chargers game, that last play doesn't even happen. He even mentioned that he passed there when he could have run the clock down, and the Chargers would have never even had the end zone play. That's okay. It was, they didn't win anyway. So then when the Chargers come to Vegas, we lose our starting quarterback. You tell me Derek Carr stays in that game that day against the Chargers? He already had him down to the 5-yard line when he went out. We probably would have trounced him. He would have scored at will on the Chargers. But he went out. Mariota came in. Mariota even threw an interception. So they got kind of to me, they played against our backup quarterback, got a lucky win. And then they go to Kansas City, and all the starters are out. So really, they had 7 wins. They should have been 6-10, and they were 7-9. And then if the Raiders, if Carr don't go down, who knows? Then they're 5-11. Then what are we saying about them? Because really, that's what they should have been anyway. That team's just not more talented than us. They're not. Their defensive line is not more talented. This defensive line is whoa. I mean, if you just really take the time and look at them, they're really good. And the surprise to me is I did watch the Seattle game is Darius Pylon. I really thought this guy, after 2 years being out, wouldn't even make the team. Now I think the guy is a beast. I know he's playing against second stringers, but when you ain't played for 2 years and you're playing that good against second stringers, go back and look at this guy's tape. He was a beast before he got knocked out. We all know McCoy. Solomon Thomas just plays decent against the run. And then we got Ngakwe. If you don't think that's improvement, then you're just not paying attention. You're just over there like PFF zombies. Oh, PFF says stats, blah, blah, blah. I never seen stats win a Super Bowl. I haven't. I don't know. Maybe you have. I haven't seen it. That's just my mere 40-plus years of watching the NFL. I did see the Raiders win 3 Super Bowls. And I remember when they beat the Eagles, stats wasn't a part of the first wild card team to win. Through the history I've watched, all this PFF stats and all this crap ESPN says, it sometimes isn't the way you measure these teams. Just like when the Eagles beat the Patriots. I mean, who's seen that coming? So if you want to just automatically pencil in that the Raiders have not done anything to fix their defense, then you're just not paying attention. I think I've said that enough, though. Let's take a look at the Broncos. The Denver Broncos, PFF, the best secondary in the NFL. It says PFF grades Von Miller is the number 11 best pass rusher in the NFL. How many sacks did Von Miller have last year? That's right, 0. He was hurt. So at 32, he was out a year. He's going to come back and be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And then they said him and Bradley Chubb together are 2 of the best pass rushing combos in the NFL. Bradley Chubb had 7.5 sacks last year. Max Crosby had 7. Now the PFF, Max Crosby is garbage, and Bradley Chubb is the number 24 pass rusher in the NFL. Now they said, well, he's had a lot more pressures than Crosby. So here's something funny. So if you run after the quarterback and you're pressuring him and he throws a 30-yard touchdown pass, that counts as a plus as you beat a pass rusher. Same play, if you're chasing him the next time and he throws another 30-yard touchdown pass, that counts as a pressure and that counts as a plus. This is what I'm talking about. Some of these stats are garbage. I want to see wins. It's just like Jerry Jeudy catching 1 million passes over Ruggs. Ruggs won a game for us, scored a huge touchdown in the Chiefs game. Most of Judy's receptions are garbage time. When they're down 30, about 20 points, you know, the Broncos, the best defense in the NFL. So the Broncos had 446 points scored on them last year. But well, they're still the best defense because PFF says they're the best defense in the NFL. 446 points is a lot of points. The Raiders had 478 points scored on them. But the Broncos' defense is great, and the Raiders is the worst ever. Stats matter. Bryce Calhoun, who's hurt a lot, is supposedly one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. Fuller, who the Bears let go, who had a bad year, he is going to change this team along with Patrick Surtain, a rookie. Both of these guys are instantly going to make this Denver defense good. Well, Bryce Calhoun was there last year. Fuller's new. He had a few injuries there that hurt him, and the last 2 years, his production went down. But Von Miller will be back, and Bradley Chubb. I'm not seeing, their defensive line is not great. Their linebackers are not great. If they have the best defensive backs in the NFL, Surtain and Fuller is the only 2 going to be there that wasn't there last year. Simmons is a good player. Simmons is really good. But this team that was good got beat 37-12 by the Raiders. You made up 37 points in the offseason with Fuller and Surtain. Your running backs, Williams might turn out to be good. Would you take Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake? Or would you take Melvin Gordon and Williams? I think it's a no-brainer. Where's your Darren Waller on this team? So how is this team more talented? Their offensive line isn't great. Our linebackers are better than theirs. Yes, their defensive backs are better than the Raiders, but their defensive line is not. I'll take Crosby and Ngakoue. You take Chubb and Von Miller. We'll see who has more sacks next year. Ngakoue had 8 sacks and didn't play 2 games, switched out for 2 different teams, didn't practice in the offseason. He had no preseason with a new team. 8 sacks. That's a down year for Ngakoue, who add 2 games to that. Maybe he has 10. Chubb, who played, I think, every game, had 7.5 sacks. Crosby had 7 sacks, played hurt. This is another team. On offense, we are way superior than the Broncos. Defense, maybe they have an okay defensive backfield that's better than ours. They can't stop the run. I expect a sweep by the Raiders over the Broncos. I expect the Broncos to win about 7 games, maybe less than that. When you say that they brought all these new defensive players, do we remember when the Eagles brought the Dream Team? That team was a lot more defensive talented than the Broncos, and you see how that turned out. But I also refer back to the 446 points that they had scored on them, and the Raiders had 478. That's not mentioned by ESPN. That's not mentioned by Colin Cowherd, or PFF. Because everything that they're giving you is just what they think. And like I said, I watched the Seattle game. I watched it twice now, the Seattle Raider game, the preseason game. I seen some stuff I liked and some stuff I didn't. And this goes back to me watching the NFL for 40 years. I don't get real caught up in the preseason. I think Nate Hobbs is a physically gifted athlete, and there's a lot of hope there. I needed to see him in coverage, but he's very fast and he's very big. I don't ever expect a lot, and this is where I differ from a lot of fans. I don't expect a lot from rookies their first year. I don't even like to grade them. I didn't like Ruggs and Arnett. I don't have a say in them either way. This year, all eyes will be on Arnett. I think Ruggs is fine. If you don't think Ruggs made an impact on this team, there again, you're the ESPNs who are over here paying attention to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and not checking anything else out. Ruggs made plays for the Raiders. But you got Waller. You had Aguilar making plays. You didn't need Ruggs to make big plays all the time. The two collapses for the Raiders is they were never great. They were playing over their head both years, just because they were really good coach team. But we don't talk about that. See, when you talk about the Raiders and you want to say, well, they collapsed at the end of the year, they weren't that good. The first year they collapsed, when they lost the game to the Jaguars, they were playing over their head. Last year, they were playing over their head. A lot of young talent. Go look how young this team is. We've got some veterans now that we picked up, but this team is young. That's a good thing. So you've got to figure improvement out of Mullen, Aburn, Farrell. You're going to see a lot of improvement out of these guys. And I would not be surprised if this defense is top 15 this year. That's just my prediction. I think a bad season for the Raiders, they come in second in this division and make the playoffs. A good season is that the Chiefs are exhausted from going to a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl, losing a Super Bowl, adding another game, and the Raiders win the division. I think the Raiders are that good. How did we beat the Saints? Saints go to Cleveland, beat Cleveland, and we beat the Chiefs and had them beat a second time. Now, see, one game could be lucky. To play the Chiefs like we did, because go back and watch the Chiefs games. Not many teams were that close to them. The Chargers, the day Herbert come off the bench, and there was no preparation for him. But how many times were the Chiefs really challenged last year? I can tell you two, for sure. Las Vegas. So that was just luck. Us coming back and beating the Saints was just luck. We hung in there with the Bills. We had a terrible call that kind of gave them the upper hand to pull away. And we hung in there with the Super Bowl champ Tampa. The Raiders had just a crazy hard schedule last year. But at the end of the year, they were worn down. The youth was starting to set in. Too many rookies starting. And that's just go back and watch the NFL. That's just the way it works in this game. It's the NFL. This is not an easy league to play in. Now we have depth. We have a better offense. And I wanted to address the offensive line because ESPN, PFF says the offensive line is not as good. Exhausting. I'm even thinking about this stuff. Well, Denzel Good played right tackle most of the year, not Trent Brown. So when we gave Trent Brown away, PFF jumped right out and said, oh, I can't believe they traded their best tackle away. He played 5 games. Did you not even mention that? Mike Renner, you never said, hey, he only played 5 games? Austin Gill, the wannabe Raider fan, which I wish you would pick another team because you're about the lamest Raider fan I've ever seen. He played 5 games. And then they said, well, Richie Incognito is one of their better offensive linemen last year. He only played a game and a half. If you're going to say something, check. I mean, how do you even respect these people who just say anything? What we gave away was Rodney Hudson. Gabe Jackson can be replaced pretty easy. I hate to bust it to you. He was getting long in the tooth. He wasn't playing as good as he had been before. So really, Rodney Hudson's what we replaced. Denzel Good's still there. He can still go right back to right tackle. They said that, I've heard the thing that they had a top 5 offensive line. They did not have a top 5 offensive line. They're a quick release offense. The offensive line doesn't have to hold blocks long, but when they did last year, they got in trouble, and Carr would get sacked or fumbled. The offensive line was not good last year. It's about as good. It may be better, or it's at least the same as it was last year. So if that is correct, in my opinion, if what I'm telling you, the offensive line is just as good as it was last year, then aren't we a lot better? Because we're better on defense. Pay attention. We're better on defense. So this is my first YouTube show. Probably a little sloppy, but I'm going to have my schedule coming out this week. I'm going to go over the schedule, predict how many wins I think the Raiders and why they will win, and why I think they'll win as many games. And I'm going to go over some of the teams and why a few of the games I do think they're going to have a hard time winning. And one game that's really important that I think that could establish their entire season, make or break them, just for a game that I believe they'll win, but I think it's a huge game for the Raiders. I hope you guys will tune in and subscribe. And I wanted to go over one other thing. I keep hearing this. I want to address this because it drives me nuts every time I hear it. It's just more of the unprofessionalism in the national media. They always talk about Gruden trading away Khalil Mack. So I just want to address this real quick. I just want to get some of this garbage that I hear out there, and hopefully some of you Raider fans will tune in and just hear me out on some of this stuff. Well, Khalil Mack, the problem with what happened with Khalil Mack, and he was all of our favorite player. I mean, all of us, me too. I loved Khalil. So you tell me how this works. Derek Carr gets hurt before we go to the playoffs to go play Houston in 2016. Khalil Mack goes on to be the MVP of the defense. So why wouldn't Reggie McKenzie, like the minute the Houston game was over, you take Khalil Mack, the MVP of the defense in the NFL, and you sign him to a big contract? Nope. There's no maybes. If you have the money, Khalil Mack is to be signed at that moment. Before the plane even lands to go back to Oakland, Khalil Mack has to be signed right then and there. But what we do is we sign a quarterback that we don't even know how good of health he is. They go and they give Derek Carr the biggest contract in the NFL. If you don't think that Mack was upset about this, then you don't even know you're human beings. That's just human nature. So then the Raiders go on to just crumble. Mack putting his body, his life, his longevity in the NFL on the line, playing under a rookie contract. But yet he's the MVP of the NFL. We have a huge locker room situation where the locker room splits down the middle. In the end, it gets Jack Del Rio fired. That, and I think the fact that he fired Musgrave, which he should have never done because his ego got in the way. And it happens to a lot of these coaches. And Khalil Mack says, the hell with it. I am not going back to Oakland. He tells his agent, I am not going back to Oakland. I'm done. I'm an MVP, and have not got my raise. I'm still under a rookie contract. Nobody does that in the NFL. Reggie screws that up. And then he throws some gas on the fire by saying to Khalil, if you don't show up for practice, you will not get paid. The end of it. Done. Gruden walks into a firestorm. There's only one thing Gruden can do. Mack says he will not play for the Raiders. That was not on Gruden. That had nothing to do with John Gruden. He never even spoke to Mack. He never had a chance. Mack had made up his mind. He was leaving. It was not just an error in judgment. It was just dumb on Reggie's part. And I know as Raider fans, we all wanted to see Mack re-signed. I did. I hated to see him go. We're not going to find Khalil Mack again in the next few drafts unless we go 1-16. God forbid that. So I just wanted to address that. And then I also want to address the Leatherwood pick. I think that, and we're going to see, in my opinion, watching the NFL, when you don't play football for a whole year and then step into the NFL, it's a pretty hard sport to just jump right in there and be productive. Penei Sewell, Slater, who apparently is doing good, is what they're saying. It's preseason. Let's see. Slater's doing okay against the second teams. I'm interested to see how these two offensive tackles do when the bullets start flying for real. And because Leatherwood has played. Now, Leatherwood's not great at pass blocking. He will get better. He's really good at run blocking. And like I said, he was replacing Denzel Good, not Trent Brown. But now we're looking at Darrisaw not playing, and the Chicago Bear offensive lineman they drafted is out for a year. So did we really do that bad? And if Baltimore indeed really wanted Leatherwood, that wasn't the worst thing by us not trading down. we'll never know. It's all hearsay by all these clowns on TV. You know, you get tired of hearing all the clowning. So, you know, it's either I just got to quit watching sports networks, because apparently ESPN has a bone to pick with Gruden, because everybody at ESPN and Colin Cowherd had problems with Gruden. I don't know if he just shunned him or didn't talk to him, or they're mad at his success, but none of them to speak of have done anything. I mean, Colin Cowherd's successful in his show. Yes, the Herd is, but he's a talk show host. None of them have the accolades that Gruden has. The guy's a damn good coach. He's our coach, and we better hope he stays our coach, because it's a huge fail if the Raiders fire him. Even if we have a bad season this year, you can't fire Gruden. You have to let him finish his plan. It's the fact that coaches who have been with teams for a long time, the Steelers, the Patriots, Seattle, are all still, they stay decent teams. You can't keep flipping coaches back and forth, because whatever the plan is has to be completed. That sounds dumb, I know. But anyway, I wanted to real quickly just give a shout out to Raiders Radio with Clay Baker, Hondo, Carpenter, Heidi Fang, my boy Q, Damon, Vinny, Lincoln. I love you guys. That's they're not homers. You listen to them, they give you a true analysis of the Raiders. You know, not all of it. They don't. What is it? Candy feed you or feed you a bunch of crap that they're pretty much shoot straight from the hip. And then the tape don't lie. I love these guys. I can't get enough of the tape don't lie. I wanted to give a shout out to Marcus Johnson and thank you for your show. I enjoy it. And B.D. Williams, a very good. If you're a Raider fan, these are shows you should check out. All of it's real, and they don't come at you as homers. They give you a true look at what the Raiders, what the Raiders could be or wouldn't be. This is my first YouTube channel. Sorry, I say right now, they get a little tongue twisted, but hopefully it will get better. Hopefully you guys will subscribe and tune in for my schedule release and my predictions here coming up on how many games the Raiders will win and why I think they will win the AFC West this year. It looks like a really hard schedule on paper. I'm not so sure it's as hard as last year. I think it's a bit easier. But I will go over that next week. And, for all the Raider haters, just shut the hell up, man. Talk about something you know. These people talk, because you guys don't know about what you're even talking about. None of it's even, half the stuff you put out there is just a false narrative. And I think that they should be held accountable. And that's why I had the tangent on the first of the show, because I just want, at the end of the year, I'm going to hold some of these people accountable. And if I hear more Raider crap out there, like Sam Monson, this guy is just, I enjoyed last year. No, we didn't get to the playoffs. We didn't win the Super Bowl. We were good. When we stepped on the field, we knew, Raider fans, how long has it been, Raider Nation, since we have felt on any team that we stepped on the field with, we could beat? Last year's the first year that I felt that way. I even enjoyed it more in 2016. I really don't. I know 2016 was a good year. I don't know. Maybe not, because Mac was there. So, but it's real close. Anytime we beat the Chiefs, what would you take? A playoff loss? Lose to the Chiefs the year? Or here's a question for you. What would you rather see? Us go to the playoffs and lose the playoff game and lose to the Chiefs, our two games we play them in the season, or would you rather see us beat the Chiefs and beat a good team and not make the playoffs? I would rather see us beat the Chiefs twice and not go to the playoffs and lose one. That's just my, Us beating the Chiefs made my whole year. I'm a Chief hater. So, this year I think I pencil us in for the playoffs. I think we're a hell of a lot better than people give us credit. And just like McCoy said in his press conference the other day, a lot of people aren't going to see the Raiders coming. And I do believe that. And I do believe on defense, the first few games, this team's going to be hard to prepare for, because nobody even knows how good they are. The Raiders don't even know how good they are, but they are much improved. I think 15, 16 best defense in the NFL. We'll see. We'll see if I'm right. History will tell. We'll see if the stats of PFF. All right, everybody. So at the end of the year, we'll see if ESPN was right or if I was right. Only time will tell. Like I said, it's just my opinion. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, subscribe down below. And hopefully I'll hear from you. Hopefully I'll get some questions and some feedback. This is the first YouTube channel I've done, and I'm going to try to get better week to week. Like I said, I've been a Raider fan for 40 years, and I do thank you guys for listening and tuning in. And hopefully somewhere in all there I give some good insight in all this. Well, God bless Raider Nation, and take care.